Hi, I'm Chris Robertson, Master Instructor for Best Incorporated. In this video, I will present the changes to the J-Standard 001 Revision H to Revision J. As we've seen in the last couple of documents released by IPC, there are very few technical changes. There's the usual formatting changes and typo corrections. One formatting change that is welcome is the use of larger images for ease of viewing and interpretation. We go to 1.8.1 in the Terms and Definitions section for the first edition. The word bubble has been added and is defined as air or other volatiles enclosed entirely, for example, in a coating material or between component body and printed board surface. A subparagraph 1.8.1.1 adds the term bridging bubble. Bridging bubble is defined as air or other volatiles enclosed entirely, for example, in a coating material or between component body and printed board surface, bridging between adjacent conductors. Electrical clearance, previously 1.8.4, has been moved to its own section in paragraph 1.12, and the word minimum was added, leaving it minimum electrical clearance. A couple of other minor word changes were made in the Terms and Definitions section. As just mentioned, 1.12 minimum electrical clearance was moved out of the Terms and Definitions and given its own paragraph. The definition of minimum electrical clearance remains the same. Some content was added in the form of a note that solder mask may not provide insulation. In a change that will remove many redundant statements, content was added that any violation of minimum electrical clearance is a defect. Throughout the document, the repeated statements of violation of minimum electrical clearance as a defect have been removed from many document paragraphs. In addition, examples of some violations of minimum electrical clearance are included in this section. Sections 2 and 3 remain largely unchanged. In paragraph 4, previous revisions, the exceptions to surface removal were stated before the requirements of surfaces to be removed. The order was changed to put the requirements first. None of the criteria has changed. Thermal protection breaks out and separates the requirements to take measures to protect temperature-sensitive components in 4.4.1 and thermal shock-sensitive components in 4.4.2. Some expanded wording was added, but no changes were made to the criteria. 4.18 adds marking requirements. As seen in the 610, markings are required to be legible, defined as capable of being read and understood after all tests, cleaning, and other processes. Section 5.1.2 corrected and clarified the requirement that any strand damage is a process indicator for 2 and 3. As rewritten, in part by yours truly, where the previous section was confusing, stating that it's a process indicator if strand damage was not considered a process indicator, the new language makes it clear that any damage to a strand is a process indicator for 2 and 3. A change in 5.1.3.2 tinning of stranded wire coverage changes the requirement for no more than 5% untinned when tinning is required from a process indicator for Class 2 to a defect for Class 2. In 5.6.3, jumper wire staking, previously the criteria recommended, with a should, that the wire be staked within the bend radius in each change in direction. That's been upgraded to a shall statement. If the wire is not staked within the bend, it's acceptable for Class 1, process indicator for Classes 2 and 3. 5.6.4, unpopulated land or vias, lap soldering, changed to align with the 610. Rather than basing the lap distance on 6 mm land size, the requirement is for the wire to be lapped at least 2 conductor diameters when the available contact length is at least 2 conductor diameters, and 100% of the available contact length when the contact length area is less than 2 conductor diameters. Section 6, through-hole technology, begins with a note that any conductor being installed into a plated through-hole or through-hole is considered a component lead. This simply defines that the criteria is the same for a wire into a hole or a lead into a hole. 6.1.2, through-hole component lead length and clinching, removed commentary and recommendations about lead clinches and now contains only the criteria. In previous revisions, 6.1.4 vias stated that vias did not need to be filled with solder. This paragraph on vias has been removed. Table 6-6 added a line to the vertical fill specifying that a wire connected to a plated through hole and that location is connected to a thermal plane has the same criteria as a component with less than 14 leads. This is still only for Class 2. On to paragraph 7. Unfortunately, gone is the user-friendly Table 7-2 that previously was used as a reference to the types of component terminations. While this was helpful in locating criteria in this section, this change is in keeping with other documents like the 610, where the decision was made to remove the mini table of contents from the beginning of each section and have the references only in the main table of contents. Most of the surface mount section remains unchanged. In 7.5.20, wrapped terminals had one minor change. The required minimum end joint was changed from 150% of R, the depth of the termination, to 50% the width of the termination. Minor, but it makes the determination of acceptability a little bit easier. In a new section, 7.5.22, lateral and central terminations on chip and MELF components was moved out of a subsection from chip components to its own table and section with new drawings and images. The criteria remains unchanged. Another addition is 7.5.23, which adds a table and illustrations for flat-leaded surface mount connectors. This was not previously addressed. Paragraph 8 remains unchanged. Paragraph 9 sees the removal of marking, mentioned earlier, as now residing in paragraph 4. Otherwise, paragraph 9 is unchanged. In paragraph 10, encapsulation was previously just a paragraph title. A definition of encapsulation has now been added. It says, encapsulation is the process of encasing a component or assembly in a coating by dipping, spraying, or embedding, with or without a mold, to provide mechanical support and environmental protection. For more information, see IPC-J-820, Section 18, Potting and Encapsulation. For the purposes of this standard, the terms potting and encapsulation are considered synonymous. Section 10.3.1.1 adds staking criteria for horizontally mounted radial-leaded components. Paragraphs 11 and 12 are unchanged, and for our final change, the removal of Appendix B, guidance for determining minimum electrical clearance, has been taken out. And there you have it. Check out the revision J of J-Standard001 to see if your company needs to move to the new revision. As is the usual answer, the training and certification for J-Standard001 is said to be in the works and should be released after about 6 months. I'm Chris Robertson. Thanks for watching.